The hall of the alien empire was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose so high that the lights above looked like distant stars. Tall pillars curved like the ribs of some ancient beast, carved with symbols older than human history. The air itself felt heavy, thick with power and silence. Every step echoed for a long time, as if the building was watching and listening. The human delegation stood near the center of the hall. They were few, too few. Diplomats in dark formal clothing stood in front, their faces tight with careful smiles. Behind them stood the security detail, human soldiers chosen not for rank, but for discipline. Among them was one man who did not look special at first glance. His armor was clean but worn, his posture straight but relaxed. His hands rested calmly near his sides. His name was Elias Rourke. He did not know why he had been chosen for this mission. He was not famous. He was not a hero from the news. He was simply a warrior who had survived too many battles to fear ceremony. Around them, alien nobles filled the hall. They were tall, graceful, and terrifying in quiet ways. Their skin shimmered in shades of silver, blue, and deep violet. Their eyes glowed faintly, sharp and ancient. They whispered among themselves, studying the humans like strange animals that had wandered into a sacred place. At the far end of the hall, upon a raised platform, sat the alien queen. She was larger than the others, not in size but in presence. Her crown was not made of metal, but living crystal that pulsed slowly with light. Her long form rested against the throne as if it were an extension of her body. When she looked at someone, it felt as though she could see through bone and thought alike. This was Queen Saren, ruler of an empire that had crushed stars into dust and bent entire species to its will. The humans had come to beg for peace. A soft, echoing sound rang through the hall. It was a signal. The lead human diplomat stepped forward and bowed deeply. "We come in respect," he said, his voice steady but strained. "Humanity seeks understanding. We wish to avoid conflict." The alien nobles reacted with faint amusement. Some tilted their heads. Others let out quiet clicks that might have been laughter. Queen Saren did not respond right away. Her eyes moved slowly across the humans. She saw fear hidden behind training, hope hidden behind pride. Weakness and strength tangled together. Then her gaze stopped. It landed on Elias. He felt it instantly. It was not like being looked at by another soldier or even an enemy. It felt like standing under a massive weight, like the moment before a storm breaks. His instincts screamed at him to lower his eyes, to kneel, to show submission. He did not because he was brave, not because he was defiant, but because he had learned long ago that panic helped no one. He stood still, respectful, alert, unbroken. A quiet murmur rippled through the hall. Queen Saren leaned forward slightly. "How curious," she said at last. Her voice carried without effort, smooth and deep, vibrating through the air itself. The translators hummed softly, converting her words into human language. "Your kind fears much," she continued, "yet this one does not." Elias felt the attention shift fully onto him. His fellow soldiers tensed. One of the diplomats glanced back in alarm. The queen rose from her throne. Every alien in the hall bowed low at once. The humans hesitated, then followed, bending stiffly. Elias lowered his head slightly, but he did not kneel. Silence fell again. The queen descended the steps slowly, her movements graceful and deliberate. With each step the floor seemed to respond, lights pulsing softly beneath her feet. She stopped only a few steps away from the humans. Close enough now, Elias could see the fine details of her face, the intelligence in her eyes, the weight of centuries behind them. She raised one long arm, her finger extended. It pointed directly at him. "I want him," Queen Saren declared. The words echoed through the hall like a shockwave. For a moment no one moved. Then chaos erupted, not loud chaos, but controlled, terrified confusion. Alien nobles hissed in disbelief. Some straightened suddenly, others whispered urgently. The human diplomats froze, their minds racing. One of them opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again, clearly unsure whether interrupting the queen would mean instant death. Elias did not move. Inside, his thoughts raced, but his face remained calm. Want him for what? As a prisoner, a trophy, an experiment. He had faced death before. This felt different, worse, unknown. The queen studied him closely. Yes, she said softly, almost to herself. The one who stands without bending. A senior alien noble stepped forward, bowing deeply. Your Majesty, he said carefully, he is insignificant, a minor warrior of a lesser species. Queen Saren's gaze snapped toward him. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. Insignificant, she repeated. The noble stiffened, realizing his mistake. He survived, the queen said. He controls his fear. He does not beg. He does not posture. He is balanced. She looked back at Elias. What is your name, human? The translator hesitated for half a second, then spoke. Elias took a breath. Elias Rourke, he said simply. His voice echoed more than he expected. The queen nodded once, as if confirming something only she could see. Elias Rourke, she repeated. You will come with me. The lead human diplomat finally found his voice. Your Majesty, he said urgently. With respect, he is under the authority of the United Earth Coalition. We, Queen Saren raised her hand. He fell silent instantly, as if the words had been pulled from his throat. I did not ask, she said calmly. I declared. Her eyes shifted back to Elias. Do you resist? The question hung heavy in the air. Elias knew the truth. If he said yes, there would be blood, not just his, possibly his entire delegation, maybe even his world. If he said no, he walked into the unknown alone. He thought of Earth, of soldiers who had stood their ground so others could live, of choices made in silence. I do not resist, he said. A few of the alien nobles looked surprised. The queen's lips curved slightly, not a smile. Something deeper. Good, she said. With a subtle gesture, guards moved forward. They did not grab him. They simply stood at his sides, waiting. Elias turned his head just enough to glance at his commander. The man's jaw was tight, his eyes burning with helpless anger. Elias gave a small nod. It was okay. As he stepped away from the human delegation, the full weight of the moment settled in. He was leaving as a soldier. He had no idea what he would become. The queen turned and began walking back toward the throne. Elias followed, his footsteps echoing in the massive hall. Behind him, the galaxy shifted. And far above, unseen by all, the stars continued to burn, unaware that a single human choice had just altered the future of empires. Elias Rourke did not know how much time passed as he walked beside the queen's guards. The corridors beyond the great hall were quieter, narrower, and far more dangerous in feeling. The walls were alive with faint light, shifting patterns that responded to movement. The air hummed softly, as if the empire itself breathed through these halls. No chains bound him. No weapons were pointed at his back. That made it worse. He had learned long ago that kindness from a powerful enemy was never simple. The guards were tall and silent, their armor smooth and seamless, grown rather than built. Their eyes stayed forward. They treated Elias neither as a threat nor as prey. It was as if he had already been decided upon, sorted into a category he did not understand. At last, the corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with natural light. The ceiling curved like an open sky, transparent enough to show the glow of distant stars. Strange plants grew along the walls, tall and elegant, their leaves drifting slowly as if underwater. Queen Saren stood at the center of the room. She dismissed the guards with a gesture. They bowed and left without question. Now it was just the queen and the human warrior. Elias stopped a respectful distance away. He kept his hands visible, his posture calm. Every sense was alert. He noted exits, shadows, changes in the air. Nothing threatened him. That alone told him everything had already gone wrong. You are not afraid, the queen said. It was not a question. I am, Elias replied honestly. I just don't let it control me. Her eyes studied him closely. Most beings say that, few mean it. She circled him slowly, her steps soundless against the floor. Elias did not turn to follow her. He had learned that predators respected stillness more than panic. Your species is young, she said. Your territory small, your technology uneven. Yet you stand before me as if you belong here. I stand where I'm told, Elias said, and I stand for my people. The queen stopped in front of him. That answer is why you are here. She gestured, and a low seat rose from the floor beside her. It was clearly meant for him. Elias hesitated. The queen raised an eyebrow. Sit. He did. The seat adjusted to his shape, solid and warm. Another quiet reminder that this empire understood comfort, control, and bodies that were not their own. You wonder why I chose you, Queen Saren said. Yes, Elias answered. Good, curiosity without panic is rare. She waved a hand and images formed in the air between them. Worlds burned, fleets shattered, species bowed or vanished. My empire has conquered for thousands of cycles, she said calmly. We have taken what we wished, ruled through fear, maintained order through power. The images shifted. Alien nobles arguing, silent cities, empty halls. But power decays, she continued. Fear creates obedience, not loyalty, and obedience breaks when pressure grows too great. The images faded. Elias listened. He did not interrupt. You are not here as a prisoner, the queen said, nor as a mate, nor as a weapon. That surprised him more than anything else. Then why? He asked. Because my people are losing something they do not even know they need, she said, and your kind still has it. She leaned closer. You endure. Elias frowned slightly. With respect, your majesty, humans break too. Yes, she said, but you break and then you continue. Silence filled the chamber. The queen straightened. You will remain within the inner court. You will be observed, tested, not with pain, with choice. Choice? Elias repeated. She smiled faintly. Let us see who you are when no one forces you. From that moment on, Elias' life became a quiet storm. He was given a place to stay, simple by alien standards, luxurious by human ones. Food adjusted to his biology appeared without request. Servants watched from a distance, never speaking unless spoken to. Everywhere he went, eyes followed. Alien nobles whispered. Scholars observed him through unseen systems. Warriors measured his movements and posture. And Elias did what he always did. He adapted. He rose early. He trained alone in open spaces where the air shimmered. Without weights, without weapons, he ran, stretched, practiced controlled movements that kept his body sharp. The aliens watched in confusion. Where were the displays, the aggression, the challenge? There were none. When scholars questioned him, he answered honestly. About Earth. About loss. About why humans fought wars they hated. When nobles tried to provoke him, he did not react. When servants made mistakes, he thanked them anyway. Slowly, something strange happened. The court began to shift. Alien guards found themselves respecting the human. Not because he demanded it, but because he never assumed it. Young nobles argued less around him. Older ones grew uneasy. He did not play politics. He did not submit. He simply existed. That more than anything made him dangerous. Queen Saren watched it all. One cycle she invited Elias to walk with her through the high gardens. The air was cool, filled with soft light and floating petals that glowed faintly. Do you know why my court fears you now? She asked. Elias considered. Because I don't fit their rules. Exactly, she said. They understand dominance, submission, deception. You offer none. They stopped near the edge of the garden, overlooking the vast capital below. I have ruled by being the strongest, the queen said quietly. But strength alone cannot heal an empire. She turned to him. Tell me, Elias Rourke, why do humans protect those who cannot repay them? Elias did not answer right away. Because, he said slowly, if we don't, then power is all that matters. And if power is all that matters, someone worse always comes along. The queen studied his face for a long moment. That night everything changed. An alarm rippled through the palace, not loud but sharp, like a blade cutting silence. Elias was awake instantly. He moved to the doorway just as alien guards rushed past, weapons drawn. A servant cried out somewhere in the distance. The palace lights dimmed, shifting to warning hues. Elias' instinct screamed. This was not a drill. Moments later, a message appeared on the chamber wall. Containment breach. Inner court compromised. Elias grabbed the nearest piece of equipment, a training blade, dull but solid, and moved. No one told him to. No one stopped him. He followed the sounds of chaos, moving through corridors now filled with smoke and confusion. Alien bodies lay on the floor, not dead but stunned. This was precise, planned. At the heart of the palace, near the queen's chambers, he saw them. Rebels, alien nobles in combat armor, faces hard with desperation. One of them turned, eyes widening in surprise. "The human," he hissed. "Stop him." Elias did not think, he moved. He used speed, angles, the environment. He disarmed rather than killed, disabled rather than destroyed. Every motion was controlled, efficient, human. Blades clashed. Energy weapons flared. Elias took a hit to the shoulder and ignored it. He reached the queen's chamber just as the doors began to fall. He braced himself and forced them open enough to slip inside. Queen Saren stood within, unarmed, calm even as danger closed in. "You should have fled," Elias said, breathing hard. "I wanted to see," she replied, watching him closely, "if you truly were what I believed." The rebels burst through. Elias stepped forward, placing himself between them and the queen. Alone, outnumbered, human. And for the first time since his arrival, the alien court would see what humans truly were when pushed to the edge. Not conquerors, not kings, but protectors who refused to kneel, even when the cost was everything. Elias stood in front of the queen with his feet planted wide and his breathing slow. The rebels hesitated. They had expected fear, panic, maybe begging. Instead, they saw a human warrior standing calmly, a wounded shoulder bleeding through torn fabric, eyes sharp and focused. He held a simple training blade in one hand, its edge dull, its surface scratched. It was not a weapon meant for war. That made the moment more unsettling. "Move," one of the rebels ordered, his voice shaking. "This is not your empire." Elias did not move. "This isn't yours either," he said quietly. The rebels advanced. They were trained. They were armed. They believed in their cause. Elias believed in one thing only. No one gets through. The first attacker lunged. Elias stepped inside the strike, twisting his body just enough to let the blade pass, then struck the rebel's wrist. The energy weapon clattered to the floor. Elias followed with a hard strike to the chest, knocking the alien backward into another attacker. The room exploded into motion. Energy blasts scorched the walls. Blades flashed. The air filled with sharp sounds and burning light. Elias moved like water forced through stone, never stopping, never wasting motion. He used walls, pillars, furniture. He knocked weapons aside, broke balance, used weight and momentum against larger bodies. A blast grazed his leg. He stumbled, caught himself, and kept going. Pain was information, nothing more. Behind him, Queen Saren watched in silence, not with fear, with attention. A rebel slipped past Elias' guard, raising a blade toward the queen. Elias saw it too late to block. He threw himself forward. The blade struck his side instead. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. He felt warmth spread under his armor, but the rebel never reached the queen. Elias drove his shoulder into the alien's chest, slamming him into the far wall. The rebel collapsed, stunned. Elias dropped to one knee. The remaining rebels froze. They stared at the human now bleeding in 3 places, breathing hard, still trying to rise. Something broke in their confidence. "This changes nothing," one of them said desperately. "The empire is rotting. She is the problem." Queen Saren stepped forward. "Enough," she said. Her voice cut through the room like a command written into reality. The rebels turned toward her, torn between fear and rage. "You claim to fight for the future," the queen continued, "yet you hide behind blades and lies." She gestured toward Elias. "This being is not of my species, not bound by my rule, and yet he stands for me without being ordered." She looked at the rebels with cold clarity. "What does that say about you?" Guards flooded into the chamber then, weapons raised. The rebels dropped theirs one by one. Silence returned. Elias finally let himself sit back against the wall. The adrenaline faded. Pain rushed in. He felt hands on him, alien medics, moving quickly, efficiently. He did not resist. Queen Saren knelt beside him. "You disobeyed no order," she said softly, "and yet you chose." Elias winced as a medic sealed the wound at his side. "Someone had to," he said. "Seemed like my turn." Her eyes searched his face. "You could have fled," she said. "No one would have blamed you." "Yeah," Elias replied, "but I would have." That answer stayed with her. News spread through the palace faster than fire. A human warrior had stood alone against the rebels. A human had bled for the queen. A human had changed the outcome of a coup without killing anyone. By the next cycle, the court was divided. Some nobles were furious. Others were shaken. Many were afraid, not of Elias, of what he represented. Queen Saren summoned the High Council. Elias was present, standing quietly behind her throne. His injuries were wrapped, his movements slower, but his posture unchanged. The chamber buzzed with tension. "This human is a destabilizing element," one noble declared. "He inspires disorder." "He inspires loyalty," another argued, "without fear." "That is worse," the first snapped. "Fear is predictable." Queen Saren listened without interruption. When the voices grew too loud, she raised her hand. Silence fell. "You fear him because he does not need me," she said, "and yet he chose to stand with me." She turned slightly, looking at Elias. "Tell them," she said, "tell them why." Elias hesitated. He had never wanted this kind of attention, but he stepped forward. "I didn't fight for your empire," he said plainly. "I fought because someone was going to get hurt if I didn't." The nobles murmured. "That's it," one asked. "No strategy, no loyalty oath." Elias shook his head. "Just a line I wasn't willing to let anyone cross." The room went quiet again. Queen Saren felt something settle into place. Later, she met Elias alone. "You have created a problem," she said. "Sorry," Elias replied. "I tend to do that." She almost smiled. "You have shown my people a different kind of strength," she said. "One they do not know how to control." "That's not my goal," Elias said. "I just want to go home." The queen studied him carefully. "I believe you," she said, "and that is what troubles me." Days passed. The rebels were interrogated. Their network exposed. The empire stabilized, but cracks remained, and Elias felt them watching him more closely than ever. One evening, Queen Saren asked him to walk with her again. They stood above the city as lights spread endlessly below. "My empire survives," she said, "but survival is not enough anymore." She turned to him. "I did not choose you for your violence," she said. "I chose you because you remind us of something we lost." Elias frowned. "I'm just a soldier." "No," she said, "you are proof." "Of what?" "That power does not have to be cruel to be strong." She looked out over her people. "I want my empire to learn that." Elias understood then. She had never wanted to own him. She wanted to learn from him. And that scared her nobles more than any weapon ever could. Far away, human space buzzed with uncertainty. They had lost contact with one soldier. They had no idea that he was standing at the center of an alien empire, not as a captive, but as a mirror. And soon, the galaxy would be forced to decide what kind of power it truly feared. It never did. Change came in quiet ways, hesitations where certainty once lived, questions where commands used to be enough. Elias felt it every time he walked the palace halls. The looks were different now, not hostile, not welcoming, measured. He had become something the Empire did not know how to name. Queen Saren called him to the high balcony at the start of the next cycle. The sky above the capital burned with soft color as massive ships moved slowly through orbit like drifting islands. "You will leave soon," she said. Elias nodded. "I figured. You are no longer safe here," she continued. "Not because you are weak, but because you are influential." "That was never my intention," Elias said. "I know," she replied. "That is why it matters." They stood in silence for a moment. "My people believe power must be imposed," the queen said. "You showed them it can be offered. That idea frightens them." Elias leaned on the railing, careful with his still healing wounds. "Humans took a long time to learn that. Some still haven't." She looked at him with interest. "Then perhaps we are not so different." The decision was announced to the court that day. The human warrior would be returned to his people with honor, not as a gift, not as a demand, but as a bridge. The reaction was immediate. Some nobles objected openly, others watched in silence. A few bowed not to the queen but to Elias. That was when the queen understood the truth. She had not elevated him, he had elevated them. Before his departure, Elias was summoned one last time to the grand hall where it had all begun. The hall felt smaller now. The queen stood before the throne, not seated upon it. "Elias Rourke," she said, her voice echoing across the chamber, "you came here as a soldier. You leave as a symbol." Elias shifted uncomfortably. "I'd rather just be a guy going home." A ripple of quiet sound moved through the court, not laughter, something closer to surprise. Queen Saren inclined her head. "Very well," she said. "Then go home as a man who stood when standing mattered." She raised her hand. "Let the galaxy remember this day, not as the moment a queen claimed a human, but as the moment an empire learned restraint." The transport ship waited in the upper hangar. As Elias walked toward it, alien guards lined the path. They did not block him. They did not escort him. They honored him. When the doors closed and the ship lifted free of the palace, Elias finally allowed himself to breathe. He was going home. Human space received the ship with panic first, then disbelief. Scans confirmed his identity. Medical teams rushed aboard. Questions came faster than answers. Elias gave them what he could. He spoke of restraint, of choice, of a queen who did not want conquest but survival with meaning. The reports spread quickly, across human worlds, across alien networks, across species that had only known humanity as a weak, noisy newcomer. And the message was simple. Humans did not conquer by force alone. They changed things by refusing to become monsters, even when it would be easier. Weeks later, Queen Saren stood alone in the same balcony where she had said goodbye. Her empire was quieter now, not weaker, aware. She watched as a human diplomatic fleet entered orbit, this time not as beggars, not as threats, as equals. She allowed herself a small, private smile. "I did not want him," she said softly to the empty air. "I wanted what he reminded us we could be." Far away, Elias Rourke stood on a quiet stretch of earth, watching the sky. He was still just a soldier, but the stars felt closer now. And somewhere out there, an empire remembered that true power was not in pointing and declaring, but in knowing when not to.